What's going on, Dragon Brawlers? Scott Sermon, your Guildmaster here for Players Guild, bringing you a Mechikabura deck profile, a top 64 Mechikabura deck profile from the Dragon Ball Super Card Game Fest in Leeds, run by Living Realms. So, overall, I came 39th. A bit about this deck: it was built as a fun way for me to get back into playing, considering I spent a lot of time commentating over the past 2 years. I really wanted to ease myself back in, not be a hyper competitive deck, but something that I could focus on and had fun with. And that was seeing how many cards I could steal. And so my goals of going into this event was win at least one round and steal as many cards as there is rounds. So there were 7 rounds. I went 3-4 overall, so 3 wins, 4 losses. With the last loss being due to the amount of battle cards I had because of the time procedures. It is what it is. Fair play to my opponent. He had more battle cards than me. And yeah, so the last thing was, how many cards did I steal? Did I steal 7? Did I steal less? No, I stole 21 cards in total, which was huge and awesome. And it was a really good feeling of just being able to go look at my opponent's cards and be like, this is mine now. Where you compare it to webcam, it's just not the same using a proxy card to symbolize that I've got one of your cards. And everyone knows Mechikabura is a deck I really like. I played it against Aspira. I played it against in that one webcam tournament where I did really well and then did amazingly terrible for the latter half of it. So, which is counterintuitive, but oh well. So I wanted to run through the deck I was playing. It's a really easy build. Ignore the price. The most of the price comes from Pan here. The Pan secret rare, which she is amazing. But you can see this deck is focused on stealing cards. So let's go over the leader quickly for those who aren't aware. When you attack, add up to 2 Dark Dragon Balls from your deck and or life. Shuffle if you look through. It's kind of annoying going first with this deck because you lose out on that draw. So if you go first, you have to hard mulligan for some cards. When you have 7 Dark Dragon Ball cards in your drop area, you can draw a card, switch an energy to active, and send a battle card in your opponent's drop to the warp to flip over. Once you are awakened or wished upon, it says awaken here, but we have wish here, so not actually sure what it's meant to be. But when this card attacks, draw a card. Activate. Note how that's not a once per turn, by the way. That'll become important later. Activate main once per turn. If all my energy is black, which it is, there's only one non-black card in this entire deck. And I choose one card in my hand and put it at the bottom of my deck, which is great with a lot of mill running around in this format. I choose one of my opponent's battle cards with 4 or less, negate its skills, switch it to active, and then gain control of it. So, not bad. 4 drop or less without barrier. I get to erase the skills and take it. Yeah, it's pretty good. I can also remove 7 Dark Dragon Balls to gain triple attack for the turn. So that means I can get a free draws, really. That's kind of what I use it for. I mean, you can use it to be aggressive in the end game. It's totally fine to do so. If I was playing a more trying to win approach, I would definitely have the Shenron Wish Granter in this build, which it gives you triple strike as well as triple attack. So that's generally the way I would like to win with Mechikabura if I'm playing on a competitive focus, but we're here for fun, and that was what it was about. So going over to our Dark Dragon Balls, we have 3 Yearning, so this guy gains Dark Dragon Ball in all areas. I can only have 7 Dark Dragon Balls in my deck. If my leader card is a Black Demon Realm Race, which we are, and my opponent chooses one card, one of their battle cards only costs a 1 and warps it, and I can do it that way. Never used the Activate main on this card. Activate Battle I used a couple of times, which is just a +5 combo, which is nice, and it's on all of the Dragon Balls, all of the standard Dragon Balls, I should say. And so it was nice. It was a nice little card, but the creme de la creme here is Dark Empire Strikes Back. It's such a good card. Dark Dragon Ball in all areas. If your leader is a Black Mechikabura with Wish, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. So it is a 1-drop, but it becomes a 0 in Mechikabura, which is amazing. I had a panic attack moment where I thought I'd been playing this card wrong for the entire time I've been playing this deck. And then I was like, wait, no, the second permanent, it's fine. If your leader card is a Black Mechikabura only and you choose 1 Dark Dragon Ball card, 1 black demon realm race or 1 black demon god card in your hand and discard it. Draw 2 cards. Your opponent then sends 1 battle card from the drop area to their warp. This came in really handy, this second effect, and you'll see why later down the line. But overall, really good. Just, yeah, you don't really gain anything from it apart from maybe warping the battle cards. So extra card heavy decks, not really affected by it. Then for our... This card I used quite a bit, but never really cared when I used it. Like, it was fine, and it's a really fun card, and I think it's got a lot of utility elsewhere. But it's mainly there just as a deterrent, right? It's a unique double strike barrier with 19k, so it's an awkward number. If they swing with a 15k, they're going to have to combo up to it. But for offensive swings, it's essentially just a 15k. If this card is in rest mode, when an opponent attacks my leader card, they warp a card from hand. So that's the main reason it's there, is just you have to deal with this before you attack my leader. Sometimes people didn't care, sometimes it wasn't relevant. And then when it's played, I get to choose a card in my opponent's hand. You choose, but you don't get to see. Or you warp a battle card they have. So both, but like, it's a pretty good 2-drop just to warp something from their hand and then warp something from their board. But you have to have 3 cards in their warp. Thankfully, it's not battle cards to play it from your hand for 2. Otherwise, it's a 6 cost. Then we're running the 1 boss monster in the deck, which is essentially for 4. If your leader is Mechikabura only, which I am, I play this card from my hand by paying 4 energy. I don't know why that's done that. 4 black energy, I should say. And then if your opponent has 4 or more cards in their warp, when this card is played, choose all of your opponent's battle cards and send them to their owner's warp. Then choose up to 2 battle cards in your opponent's warp with an energy cost of 7 or less in different names. Negate their skills, play them in your battle area. You can't play non-black battle cards for the turn. Shockingly, I'm not playing non-black battle cards apart from Ginyu. It's got deflect, so if you use this effect, it's always going to get this effect as long as you meet the 4 or more cards in warp. Again, not restricted to battle cards. And you need the 4 in there to warp everything. You can't just play it, then warp everything. So you need to be on 4 cards in their warp, but by turn 4, realistically, that's something you should have attained. And it's a double strike Fates kit. It's not that bad stat-wise. It's mainly there to get 2 extra bodies on board, and that did come in useful quite a few times in the game. And I did count those as stealing cards. If you wanted to know why the number was so high, it was resolving this guy quite a bit. Pan, great for boards that go wide, because if you have 3 or more energy, you essentially free player if there's 4 cards on board, 4 battle cards. And then your opponent can't attack with battle cards for the turn, but then you can't use a counter on this card for the game. Each battle card in play reduces it by 2, which is why if there's 4 battle cards between you and your opponent, she's just a free play 40k swing. And then she has the activated main of paying 1, remove it from the game to choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and gain control of it. So really handy. This keeps their effects, which is nice compared to the leader and the Mechikabura, where they become skillless beat sticks. This was really awesome. I stole a 9-drop sim with it. I stole a few other things, so it was really cool to use this card to swing and steal. We got Ritual at Hand Salsa. He's probably the MVP of the Dark Empire, I'm not going to lie. One of my favourite cards, just generally. So he has an activate main of pay 1 if your leader is Mechikabura only. You have 2 or more Dark Dragon Balls in your drop. You play this card from your hand, and you can place up to 2 Dark Dragon Balls from your deck in the drop area, but you got to shuffle if you look through it. So this is really good at turboing your Awaken, which is it's fine. Essentially, you should be able to do this turn 1 always. That is the goal with this card, is to be able to do this turn 1 always, or the Tower version of this. When this card is played, your opponent chooses 1 card in the hand, send it to the warp, draw a card. So they draw a card, not you draw a card. When this card attacks, your opponent chooses 1 battle card in their drop area and send it to the warp. Draw 1 card, and you can't activate auto skills on copies of this card. So, even if they don't have a battle card in their warp, you still get this draw 1 card. It's still part of the same effect. It's a semicolon, not a colon. It's not a cost to do the effect. So yeah, it's just a really solid 15k card for 1. It draws you a card and also fills up the warp by just playing it. So it's a really solid card. Really appreciate it. Toa is amazing. She's not 15k, so she's not swinging, but she is a 10k blocker. When this card is played, you choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and send it to the warp. Then your opponent chooses one card in their hand and sends it to the warp. They also draw a card. So 2 ways of just, for 1 energy, filling out that warp by playing the cards. And it's really, really solid. Really cool card. It's also a blocker, so it does help that way. Poutine, amazing floodgate. Only for this deck. If your leader card is Black Mechikabura only, negate the card and then play it. If your opponent's turn, you choose a card from your hand, place it in the bottom of your deck. When this card is played, your opponent can't attack for the turn unless they choose 2 cards in their hand and warp them. It's a nice little cost restriction. Again, in this mill format, putting cards at the bottom of your deck isn't the worst thing in the world. Then we have our super combo, which is Vegeta. It's a staple, obviously. Yeah, there's not much more to add to it other than it's another card that puts a card at the bottom of your deck and draw 2 cards. This came up against Slug, and so thankfully you still do get the 10k combo, even if you don't do the putting a card at the bottom. But man, that Slug card is nasty. That stops you drawing from skills. It shut off my Vegeta. It shut off my Dark Empire Strikes Back. That's a really solid card. And really good in the yellow trunks. So that was a really cool strategy. I'm not a huge fan of yellow in general as a playstyle, but that was a cool interaction. And as much as it was frustrating for me, it was nice to see. The one thing about this best of 1 with pre-sideboard was I saw a lot of different decks that I didn't expect to see there, and it was really nice. So another staple, really, I mean not staple, but just like a really good card. If you have 5 or less cards in your hand when you combo with it, it becomes a super combo. Really good, really good. Another amazing card for this deck, Support of the Dark Empire. If your leader card is a black negate, if your leader card is mono black, negate the attack, then play 1 Demon Realm Soldier. It gains blocker for the turn. Has 5k power and 5k combo cost. Now, this combo cost is hugely important. If you're at 5 or less life, you can take a life to use the counter skill. So you save yourself 2 energy. It's really good. It also helps you get into that 4 range for super comboing if your opponent's not attacking your leader, which you do give them ample opportunities not to attack your leader. So really solid card. I did drop it. I was running a Fed in the sideboard, but I dropped it in the end apparently. Attack of the Dark Empire. So this was a card simply to turbo out my Toa, because you look at the top 7 cards of your deck. And then basically just like, were the cards there that I needed to see? Yes, they were. And then so you either add a Evil Wizard, Demon Realm Race, or Demon God, which is most of this deck, or you can play a Unison with 20k and no specified cost, which is the next card, which is Toa, Demon Scientist. So she can't attack with 2 or less, so she needs 3 markers to attack, which is fair enough. When one of your opponent's battle cards is removed from their battle area by a skill or KO'd, she gets a marker. She has a +1 of choosing a card in your hand to discard to choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards when it costs 3 or less and warp it. So this mainly was to use this to discard into Koi or Kai, because you can recur them with Power Burst. But I don't really think I used that activate main much. I did, however, use this -4 activate main at least twice to gain control of an opponent's battle card. And it retains its position, and it also keeps its effects. So it's really good, especially in those late game grinds. I really do like it. It's a card I would immediately cut if I was trying to be competitive with a deck, because it just does, like, it's fun for what I was going for, but in terms of playability, there are way more cards that I would run over it that are way more viable. Especially in Black, right? I mean, you can realistically fit the Goji Azena package in this deck. I've done it before. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. Especially with the new Cantrip Goku, it's not actually that bad. But other than that, that's the crux of the Steal Your Cards deck. That was all about what I used. It was fine. It was fun. Most games I did end up siding in that second copy of Mechikabura, so that was fun. Power Burst, generic sparking from set 5. It's great. It recurs Kai, it recurs Koitsukai. Just a really solid card. Sparking 5 to take a life. It helps with those matchups where they don't attack you too much. Yeah, and it can afford you to tap out, and you know you're pretty much going to have 7 cards in your drop because of the Dark Dragon Balls. Koi, a really good value card. You pay 1, remove it in your turn to put 2 cards, but up to 2 cards back from your hand. So if there's 2 cards that you're like, these aren't great right now, You draw the equal number of cards you put back. And then for the turn, if your opponent plays a battle card with 20k power or less, you have to warp 2 cards. So it's a really solid deterrent for counter players. If I was a better player, I would use this more. I did side a third one. I think there was only one game I did side in 3 copies of, and it didn't come up because I didn't really know my matchups going into this. I should have done more research, realistically. Oceanus, I thought I had a 4th of this. I don't. She's an immediate 4 of. She's just so good. She stops turns. Using her, I managed to stop my opponent from killing me by a battle because they had 3 cards in the deck, and I also lost to a U7 deck, but they had 1 card left in their deck. It's like, so if I had seen a 4th one, consistency of it, you know, it's great. She's just 2 cost in your turn, so same as Poutine. So 2 floodgates at that 2 energy curve. Again, you have to discard a card for her, so discarding things like Coit is fine, discarding things like Supreme Kai is fine, because you can recur them. And so yeah, the more 1-drop black battle cards that I like, so I could probably sort this out for the Goku, which is also a 1-drop cantrip, and then this card just becomes even better because the cards you're discarding can be recurred, and you don't really mind if they're in your drop because then you can warp them. It's fine. And then this guy is a nice little spicy tech. Didn't come up as much as I wish it could have, but essentially if I gain control over a card, I can choose it, send it to the drop area and play it, and it's just a nice 20k double strike. Realistically, this becomes double strike Champa or East Kai. That's about it. So the sideboard, Coit, fine. Broken Seal Mechikabura, one of my favourite cards in the game. It's amazing. Again, this is where matchup knowledge would have come in. It did save me in my second Sin matchup where I was able to stop the 4-drop from being played, which in turn stopped me from being locked out so I could still swing and get my balls from my leader. But in Mechikabura, it also helps because you can add Dark Dragon Balls to your hand once a turn. It's really good. It has Deflect, so it will land. It's a 15k swing if nothing else. Yeah, really solid card. Honestly, if you don't have it, I would pick it up just because it's amazing. There's no pricing information on it, which is sad, but it's good. It's a really good card. I really love it. Ritual at Hand didn't come up. There wasn't as much hand control as I was kind of expecting there to be. But yeah, so if it's discarded, you pay 1 to play it, and then when it's played, you draw 2. Wish I had seen it. Didn't. Mechikabura I did side in because it's good. This Bardock is awesome. It's Overwhelm 6, which is easy to do in the deck. Like, sometimes you can justify overwhelming because the ultimate effect of Mechikabura isn't the most amazing thing in the world. So you can just justify putting cards into your warp if you really want to. Then you got up to 3 black battle cards. Place up to 3 black battle cards from your warp in your drop area, which, yeah, fair enough. So it's half of its cost. And that's when it's played using Overwhelm, so it's fine. But the main thing here is the activate battle for 1 black. If your leader card is black and you discard this card from your hand and crit a life, you don't take damage for a battle. So this is great against cards like Victory Strike. It's great against Selzina. Yeah, it's just a really solid out to a double strike finish. Yeah, I've sided it in a few games. It's great. Petrification, another amazing sideboard card. It basically shuts down a lot of yellow decks. Wish I'd sided it in for my last game because it would have come in handy. But you learn, you live and learn, right? That's the rule of thumb. And yeah, it's just a really good card. If your leader card is black, you negate the attack. You can discard a card. We've gone over what you can discard in this deck, which is fine. Hell, you can even discard Dragon Balls if you really need to. And if you placed a card in your drop area, you get this effect, which is choose one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, which is huge for black. It can't attack, be placed in your opponent's combo area, or activate skills until the end of your next turn. So if you do this in your opponent's turn, which is when you will do it, you get a full turn of that problematic card being skillless, which is really good and allows you to remove things via leader effect or Toa or Mechikabura, like lots of good removal. We have Finn here. I only sided it in once, didn't see it, but it would have been handy in the matchup, which was the U7 matchup. So when you play this card, your opponent chooses one of their cards and then you send the rest of them to the warp. Yep, it's just really good. It doesn't get around barrier, which is sad, but really good against boards that go wide, punishes them quite heavily. And then Ultra minus Energy Powerball, as much as I love it, I just didn't come up in this deck. But it is a good card, and it's probably a card worth picking up. If your leader card is mono black, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with 15k power or less, ignoring barrier, and warp it. This would be great against Sin, except their main problematic card is 19k. So, it sucks. Like, there's a lot of 19ks and 16ks that just slightly bypass this card, and it's really frustrating. It becomes Shadow Dragon in all areas, not relevant for this deck. If you have a Black Unison in play, you can activate this counter skill without paying its cost. So it's a 1 cost normally, but you can activate it without using it. So that, like, the synergy's there with Toa, but the deck never really aligned. Like, my matchups never really aligned to where I'd be using both. And then the activate main battle is you choose a leader or battle card. It gets 15k until the end of turn, or battle, whichever comes first. So it's fine. It's a fine card. Overall, I had a lot of fun. Again, I want to shout out Living Realms. They hosted an amazing event. It went really smoothly. Shout out to the judges who did their really good job, really efficient. I didn't really see any notable issues or weird ruling questions that wasn't consistent. So, you know, I felt it was a really fun return for Dragon Ball in person in the UK. 73 people total, which, you know, it's a nice number. It's bigger than some of our London-based events, which is nice to see. And if we can start to build people up from here, then that's a really good sign. And I'm really happy Dragon Ball survived the 2-year terribleness that we've had to suffer through. I'm grateful that Dragon Ball is still around. Let me know what you think of the Mechikabura, guys. Will we see more support from him in future? I think we've got at least one set of more Mechikabura cards to come, because we still do not have Time Power Unleashed. This is not Time Power Unleashed Mechikabura. This is Power Restored, but it's not Time Power Unleashed. So we still have at least one Mechikabura card to go. And we haven't seen Shroom or Salsa in Margin forms, which is their Doggo forms. But also they have new outfits as well, so we haven't seen them yet either. I would love to see a return to this mechanic. I love this a lot. Maybe a card that evolves on top of these, which would make the Shroom more playable. That, or I could see them really going into swap, but they restricted swap so much that I don't think it will. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Mechikabura. It's one of my favourite decks. It's one of my favourite characters. It's a great story to learn. And yeah, guys, let me know in the comments below what you think. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for more Dragon Ball content on our channel very soon. See ya!